All right, now we will be dealing with the outer and inner body. When I grew up, it was pretty customary for us to take a bath once a week. How many of y'all remember them days? Anybody? By that time, you're getting ripe. You know what? When you begin to take a bath, quite often, you just feel better. And you smell better. And, you know, I heard people say in the stores already that when those farmers come in, man, they don't have any idea what they smell like. And you know what? It's just pretty good idea if you've been in the barn and you're going to go to the grocery store, remember other people's noses is in there. Now, that physical body needs to be taken care of. And folks, I really think that if you're clean on the inside, you want to be clean on the outside too. That's what I think. And so what we mean by clean is that this body needs to be kept clean. It will get dirty. It's a cursed thing. Do you know? I don't believe that Adam and Eve ever had such a thing as restrooms. There wasn't no such thing before the fall of man. We had to go back to a cursed deal. God didn't create us to have all this mess and changing baby diapers and everything else. I don't think at all. It came with a curse. But now we're going to have to do something about it. So we start doing things right. That body odor, even if you do wash, there's sometimes people put off body odor. They call it BO, I don't know. That's what they used to call it. And so people get sprays and colognes and perfumes to try to counteract the crash we have. And I'm just wondering, if you're going to take care of this physical body, there are certain things you have to handle it correctly. If you're going to, there's nothing wrong with eating leeks and garlic and onions. And I dearly love them. And so I couldn't eat very many because I was always going to service or hold meetings for a week and I can't eat no onions. And I went to a country, and I'll never forget that. This fellow said to me, now, Brother Rhodes, here is one place you'll never have to worry about all the garlic you want to eat. Just eat garlic to your heart content, because everybody in this country eats garlic every day. Whoo-wee, was that good news to me. But it all smelled the same. Do you know a skunk never has a problem thinking somebody else stinks because they all smell the same? So if you're eating onions and so forth, but you know, really it does make, now I'm not talking about ramps, that stuff will kill you. I mean, ramps is outrageous. How many of y'all know anything about ramps? I mean, you know, that is a lingering thing. If you've never been eating ramps, you don't know what I'm talking about. If you've never been around people that ate ramps, I mean to tell you that's something. All right, now, so what you need to do is manage that body. I really feel sorry for a woman that's got a snuff or a tobacco chewer husband. And that old stuff running down the edge of his cheek, and then it goes, bang, right on her cheek. Lord, deliver us from snuffing such stuff. You know, and furthermore, you know what? If you're around people, you ought to be considerate of how you smell. if you sweat a lot, it don't hurt to take a bath. It's just a good idea. And I think you have to manage that. You tell your children, the reason we're going to wash now. We're not just going to go and put some water on us, we're going to wash. And as Brother Reuben said the other day, wash behind your ears. Yeah, I think y'all heard that before. Mother used to call, now don't forget to wash behind your ears. Well, what would make anybody think you wouldn't wash behind the ears? But anyway, how often do you bath? I'm not going to tell you how often to bath. And I don't think anybody else needs to tell you that. But there is some good idea to keep washed up. And if you're going to wait till you're good and dirty, you probably, a person that, now I tell you what, you start washing and you start taking baths on a regular routine basis, your body gets in the habit of that, and it's better for everybody. You feel much better. You feel a whole lot better being washed up. And I tell you what, I'm going to talk about this on this. Daniel purposed in his heart that he would not defile himself with the portion of king's meat, nor the wine which he drank. I think we need to consider what's putting in our body. We need to manage what goes into our body. There's some things as you get older that don't work like they used to work. Things just get different. You have to be more careful with things. And what you put in your body, you could engage in something that you normally wouldn't just keep doing. Let's say sweets, for an example. A lot of American people are sweet addicted. So they want sweets all the time, sweets and sweets. And if there's anything that's addictive, I think, is iced tea. Oh, that stuff. I mean, that's just all right. Drink it. I mean, it tastes good. It just really settles a lot of stuff. But you may have to drop off a little bit because you can't sleep. If you drink and you can't sleep, you might check your something like this. And also coffee. How much coffee do you drink? This sounds like exaggeration. I'm telling you, this sounds like exaggeration, but I knew the man. He was told that if he didn't cut back on coffee, he's going to die. And the guy said, my goodness, he said, I can't cut back no more than this. I mean, that doctor's trying to get me off of the stuff, I think. My question is, how many cups of coffee do you drink now? He said, 25. I said, I don't even see how you can get that down. Now, I never figured it up, but 25 cups of coffee, that's a lot of stuff. But he got used to it for some reason or another. And the doctor told him, no, that'll go kill you. That's still way too much. And it is. I mean, anybody drinking that much. But I think once you get in an addiction like that, you can do more than you think. It just flows through you. But anyway, there needs to be some time we have to consider. Is my eating habits bringing me to the grave? Am I putting nails in my coffin? What am I doing with my eating habits? How am I making out? And it's good to think about that. And you ought to think about it when you're raising children too. And it was kind of interesting at my home. We were just plain old onion people. I mean, potatoes with onions and meat with onions and everything else with onions and, a whole bunch of stuff with onions. And my dad didn't want us to know it necessarily, but he hated onions. He can't stand them. They would make him get all sick or something if he ate them. And so finally we found out why he don't eat onions. I mean, they'd make potato salad, good, but potato salad always has onions in it. But my dad couldn't eat it. And you know what? He explained it to us, what the trouble was. He's not just saying he don't like onions. He's not saying I don't like it. See, this makes it inconvenient. If you had, in my family, I have 14 brothers and sisters. They're not all living. But suppose some of them said, let's say 5 of them said, well, I don't want onions. 5 of them said, I don't like beans. 5 of them said, I don't like something else. We'd have had a kind of division. My mom and dad went like this. I didn't like peas. I thought peas was not human food. Don't ask me why I don't like peas. Didn't like peas. And they would have a law at my house. It was a law of Medes and Persians that could not be altered nor changed. We had to eat a little of everything. And everything that my parents forced me to eat, I learned to love. You talk about something good. You get peas just right out of the garden. But you see, I had to manage my body to cooperate with my mother and dad's laws. And once I did, then I learned they knew what they were doing. Now, onions is a different story because something like leeks and onions or something can have a reaction on you different than some other people. And we're not talking about something like this. We're talking about just food. And another thing I thought was the worst thing you could just about feed a human being was turnips, cooked turnips. And, man, so in order to try to tame it down, they put a little potatoes in, to kind of tame it down. I was married, and one day I got so hungry for turnips, and I told Esther, I don't know why I'm hungry for turnips. I'm just terribly hungry for turnips. I'm going to go find me some turnips. So I went and bought some. Come home, and I said, oh, them things are so good. Oh, I've loved them ever since. Now, don't know why. Didn't like them when I was a youngster. Thought they was terrible. But you feed me turnips now. That's the top of my list stuff. Turnips and cabbage and peas and stuff, And it's all because somebody decided to manage their body. All right, this is the way we're going to do. In this family, all right, in Esther's family, she was brought up different than I was. What her likes was different than my likes. But we learned how to adjust to her and my likes. And we make that all right. We manage our bodies. We manage that. Some people just, spaghetti and then spaghetti and spaghetti. And the next person says, no, macaroni. And then somebody else, something else. I'm kind of glad I can decide at our house a little bit what we're going to do. I like spaghetti, but I don't want it all the time. And so there's just certain things that we work out as a family. What are we going to make here? Asher and I, we just make meals. We just make them. We just sit down and eat them. Whatever. My wife can adjust to things easier than I can. I think she could eat anything easier than I could, but you can get to the place where you manage your body. Hey, look, we shouldn't be eating too much of that stuff. We're going to shut down on this a little bit. We're going to cut back on this. We're not going to quite put this much in and so forth. Now let's go to that personal management, that character management. We talked a little bit about teaching your children character, but if the mom and dad don't know character, you're going to have a problem. In the workplace, home, everywhere. What kind of a character do you have? You can often look at a person and see who they are just by their character. A fellow walked into one of our business places one time. We were into a business place, and he said, I'm looking for a job, and I don't guess you want to hire me. And I was looking for somebody. I said, no, I don't think I could use you. You know why? He come in like a slop, dirty, unclean. And I like to say unshaven, but I'm not talking about a fellow wearing a beard. I'm talking about just not cleaning up. You know what? Your character will tell on you. What's wrong with just plain down getting to the place where you start adjusting? You say, all right, I'm going to go look for a job, and I'm going to look decent when I go into this place. I'm going to look like I've got something, you know. Y'all have heard this before, but I was at a place where a man I've known for years, he hires a lot of people. And this fellow walked in to his office while I was there and said, Mr. So-and-so, he said, I'm needing a job. And I was wondering, if you got anything I could do? And he said, no, I don't. He said, tell you what. He said, I don't like to do without work. I mean, he said, I'll tell you what I'll do. If you'll let me get a broom, I'll sweep your parking lot up. It's just something to do. And it won't cost you a penny, because until I find a job, I want to do something. And he said, you know, I'd like for you to do that, but I can't do it because of the law. I wouldn't be allowed to do that. And that fellow said, okay, if you ever get an opening, let me know. That fellow walked out the door, and this guy looked at me and he said, boy, I tell you, I wish I would have had an opening for him. I was trying to figure out what I could do with this guy, because you don't find many like this. And that same fellow had a guy come in there one time and wanted to work, and this guy came in. This man, I tell you, he's a mechanic. And this guy walks in at this place to look for a job. His hair, his hair is, every hair is in place. I mean, the man's combed up neat, just real neat. And I thought, this guy never make a mechanic. You know, and that fellow was so much of a mechanic that they could get him to work on real professional cars and stuff, because the man is real clean. And I mean, this guy worked on automobiles and stuff. We're talking about the character now. And he was neat the whole way through. I mean, his hair was in place. Everything was just right. The guy'd get down and work on a car and come in and clean himself up. And there was a cousin of mine ran a garage. He worked on Cadillacs and that kind of stuff. And he told me, he said, Brother Rhodes, if you couldn't come in to this place where we work on automobiles and sit down on the floor with that suit on, we have a problem. He said, we've learned to be neat around here. Now, what I'm saying about character, I'm not saying you have to do that. But what I am saying, that if you're going to try to look for a job, you at least act like you know what you're doing. You know, you're at least going to act like you know what you're doing. You're either dirty or clean. What are you? Why are you dirty? Well, it's just the custom. Why is it the custom? A farmer doesn't have to be dirty all the time. When he's dirty, he can change clothes. And I feel sorry for some of these women having to clean up after some of those farmers. I mean, been in the barn, you don't know. Man, they're awful. That character of whether you have a harsh or gentle voice makes a lot of difference. Just really a lot of difference. You work in a place and somebody meets you with a gentleness. You know, Esther and I was flying. I don't know who was with us. The McNellys were with us, I guess. We was flying to New Zealand. And this gentleman that's called a stewardess or whatever, I said to my wife, said, that's the most gentle fellow I ever seen. I wonder where he got that characteristic from. I really wondered. That fellow he was just as kind as he could be. His whole character was kindness. You could just tell it. I mean, the whole way to New Zealand, he was just as friendly and as cheerful and so forth character. And I wanted to ask him, I didn't want to embarrass him, but I wanted to ask him, hey, why are you that gentle? Where did you get this from? What are you? Who are you? So he stood out. I remember one time we were late. And we're still on the subject of character. Every flight was canceled. This was canceled. That was canceled. This is canceled. Storms coming through and this and canceled. That and stopped. This and it's getting late and it's really a mess. And now we're getting ready to load up, but it don't work. Now they got a storm in a certain area and so we can't fly. We're stuck. And I'll never forget this time. I don't think I'll ever forget it. There's a big, tall, black fella got on that plane that was supposed to, steward or whatever you call him. And that fellow had to kind of go like this because he was taller than the plane. He got onto this two-motor plane. And he goes like this, and he said, I guess y'all can see that this plane is just a little bit too big for me. And he said, now listen, could I have your attention, please? You're mad, aren't you? I don't blame you, I am too. This plane's supposed to have been leaving a long time ago. And I got to work overtime here because the storm. So, but I'd like to cheer you all up. He said, now I have to give you the directions on how to run this plane and what to do in case of an emergency. And he'd say, and I asked the boss one day, I said, what do you do when nobody's paying attention? Nobody's paying attention. This whole guy's really got us going, I'm telling you. And he said, so he said, no, I'd like to have your attention. You see, because, you might need this sometime. And he was really a clown. That guy was really putting on. He said, I told him out there, I said, y'all, I know how y'all feel being late. You're going to get home late and everything. I know how you feel. But I ordered some steaks for y'all. And they'll be bringing them, putting them on the plane. He said, let me see. This is flight number 2546. I told them to put that steaks on the wrong plane. I thought, well, I'm sorry. We won't have steaks after all. This guy, I had to ask him where he got all this stuff from. Then he said, now the way you fasten a seat belt is you hold it like this. Everybody watching? And he goes like that real fast, And everybody's laughing. That guy had everybody's attention. And somebody said, boy, that guy sure knows how to handle you when everybody's half mad on a plane. But I had to wonder, who taught him that? It's character. See, that man could use his character. He managed his character. He knows he's dealing with a bunch of irritable people. And they're half mad at everybody, but he knew how to get them. And so what he's doing, he had learned to build his character up. Now, he'd have slowed angers better than the mighty, and he'd have ruled his spirit, and he'd have taken the city. Hey, listen, that's pretty good if you can control your anger. Anger's all right, you need it, but you need to control it. And a righteous man regardeth the life of his beast. I think that's really important. I've watched children picking a cat up by the tail and carrying it around and pick him up by the ears and carry him around stuff. I mean, I pity these cats and dogs and so forth. And, it's just to me, listen, those things got feelings too. A dog can tell if you love him. One of my kinfolks had a dog I didn't love. Mean as come out. I went over there one day, nobody around. That dog come out after me. He is on a long string, and then he has this rope that goes the whole way down through there, and he runs on this wire. And I jumped out of that car and I took off after that dog. And I ran after that dog. That dog was scared. And I yelled at him. I screamed at him. I did everything. And that dog got in under the barn down there and went, oh, 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 oh. And I said, yeah, yeah. You better stop barking at me like that. So I had to go back later on. And I pulled in that driveway, same automobile, same fella crawled out of the vehicle. And that dog come up there, oh, 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 oh. And this Kent folks said, wonder what happened to the dog. I said, he acts like he's scared. Well, you still regard the life of a beast. You know, I'm not talking about that dog. Unless you think I don't like dogs. Well, dogs are all right. God made dogs. So I'm not going to quarrel with God about his creation. And the Lord said unto Cain, why art thou wroth, and why is thy countenance fallen? You know, folks, what do you do when something goes wrong? Whatever. You together, Dave? All right, anyway. You know that characteristic of being down in the dumps all the time. And here's one thing that I'd like to caution y'all. Manage your life so that you're not up one day and down the next, and up and down and in and out and in and out and up and down and in and out. Because that's really disgusting to be around people that one day, ha 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 ha, next day, hoo 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 hoo. You know. And what's you manage your life and manage your character. All right, let me see. If thy right hand offended, cut it off. I mean, don't let your stuff get in your way. Now, let's go to that independent spirit. I'm taking too much time here. I better hurry along a little bit, but we don't want to spend another 3 weeks here. Independent spirit management. All right, I have an independent spirit. You ever hear that? I'm independent. And I don't like anybody telling me what to do. You know, you know what they used to do with independent spirits in the Old Testament? In Deuteronomy 21:18, if a man have a stubborn and a rebellious son, which will not obey the voice of his father and the voice of his mother, and that when he has chastened him will not hearken to them, then shall the father and his mother lay hold on him, drive him up, cuff lick him, and bring him out to the elders of the city and to the gates to his place. And they shall say to the elders of the city, this our son is stubborn and rebellious. He will not obey our voice. He is a glutton and a drunkard. And all the men of that city shall stone him with stones that he die. So shalt thou put away evil from among you, and all Israel shall hear and fear. I want to ask you something. What do you think a parent would feel like having to do that? But you knew they knew that if they didn't take care of that situation, all Israel would be messed up. That's what was going to happen. All Israel messed up. If that independent spirit isn't managed, you're going to want to do everything your way. And everything has to be done my way. And I'm an independent person. I'm not going to be under anybody else's leadership. I've seen people went out on their own. They're going to do this. They're going to do that. They're not having anybody else tell them what to do. Just the Lord tells them what to do. But it wasn't very long the Lord didn't tell them what to do. And they got themselves in a lot of trouble because they thought the Lord would tell them. God still uses leaders. God still uses pops and moms. And that independent spirit that rise up in you, if it isn't taken control of, your children can have it. And they'll disrespect you as well as others. You say, well, I have that. I just hear so many people say, well, I kind of have an independent spirit. It's kind of the same as a private spirit. Well, I'm a private person. Now let's get to this workplace management. You know, if you don't manage from where you're working at, you're going to have a problem. Now let me ask you something. Let's suppose you was working with a crowd of people that are not very sanctified. They're kind of off in their area. They're worldly. And you came on the scene. Could they tell a difference in you? Would they notice the moment you came on the scene that you're different? I'm going to repeat this story one more time here. Esther has a cousin, or had a cousin, that went to work at a place. And there was a fellow from the same church had worked at the same place. And these two fellows go to the same church. And Esther's cousin goes to the boss man and said, I'm going to have to give up working here because this other fellow is just so foul. Foul language, foul everything that I can't handle. He said, I want to protect my spirit. I want to protect my life. And the boss man said, oh no, if I have to fire anybody, I'm firing him. You're not gone because you're the one doing the work. Esther's cousin come back to work the next day, and the guy that got fired come to work the same day. Only difference was he had a gun with him, and he walked up and shot Esther's cousin. See, that's hidden character. That independent spirit. You're not telling me what to do. I killed him. Yeah, I killed him. I mean, shot him, killed him. But I told my wife, I said, that fellow died for a good cause. Now, here's a man that goes to church with you. Shot him. Foul mouth. Now, this guy's in trouble. If you don't manage that independent spirit thing, you can get yourself in a lot of problems. That happened last year, wasn't it? Was it last year? 2 years ago? Not 2 years ago. This workplace management where there's jokes and so forth, you can't always find a good place to work. But I'll tell you what, if you don't manage it, you're going to have yourself a problem because that world is going to affect you. I know a fella come to me one time, and he said, Brother Rhodes, he said, I work at a place, and he said, the girls are after me every day. And I said, I told him I have a standard. And he said, they start pressuring, they start pushing. And he said, it's getting so aggravating that every day they just gather around me and just insist I go to bed with them. And he said, I don't know what to do anymore. And he said, would you pray for me? He said, I don't want to lose my standard. Do you know what? Those girls made a decision that they're going to trip him. He'll give in one day. We keep pressuring him. I said, the best thing for you to do is get out of that place. Just go away from it. Just leave. Well, he needs a job. No, that's a poor argument. You get out of working in a place like that. You say, well, I need a job. No, you don't. You'd be better off to do something else. Anyway, if he didn't get out of the place, he's a fallen man. I can tell you that now. They'll make fun of you and everything else. You're going to have to get to the decision that who are you working with? Who's your children going to be working with? What kind of environment are they with? What does the people in that... I know of a certain fella that got involved with some people, and the first thing you know, he got messed up, so perverted that you can't even help him anymore. He had made some standards, but he lost them. And folks, this character management is one that's really you're going to have to get a hold of for that independent spirit. You can't have that independent spirit. Well, I'll take care of myself. No, you won't. And workplace management of where you're going to have to watch what you're doing. Whose mouth speaketh vanity, and their right hand is a right hand of falsehood. I mean, people that's working it with alongside of you can really cause you a lot of problems. Esther and I was at a place, and Esther's uncle wanted me to help Esther and I to help. We were farmers. We didn't need the job, but we were there because they were in a hurry and needed to get a bunch of stuff done. And we went there, this foul-mouthed woman. I told you all this story before, too. This foul-mouthed woman kept saying some old sexy stuff all the time. And I looked at her, and I called her by name, and I said, I'm telling you right now, if I'm going to work here, you're not, and if you're going to work here, I'm not. Your mouth needs to be stopped. She goes, oh, I'm sorry. I looked over at the boss man. I said, I'm not working around this foul-mouthed woman. You know what? That's a last of foul-mouthness. He said, you're not leaving. You're helping me. And that woman's mouth was stopped. You know why? Because I took authority over that thing. And she was surprised. She said, then she told me later, she said, you know, really, I don't mean anything bad. I said, the abundance of the heart, the mouth speaketh. Don't tell me that. You got to get some boldness in you. Old generational vipers. How can you, being evil, speak good things? Out of the abundance of the heart, the mouth speaketh. That's what I told her. Out of the abundance of the heart, the mouth speaketh. If people say, well, I've got a clean mind, then why are you talking dirty? You got a clean mind? Where's your dirty? Now, a workplace, you can't always help it. Somebody's going to be there. But if you can't handle it, you better get out of there. And furthermore, they say, well, I tell you what, we'll hire you, but you're going to have to work on such and such a day. Oh, yeah? Now you're going to do it. Listen, that's the day I go to church. I will not work that day. Now, you can fire me. I've seen them shift around. They try to put you under force. But I say, well, we can't get rid of you, so we'll work around it. You know, it's servants, be subject to your masters with all fear, not only to the good and gentle, but also the froward. See, this is what makes a difference. You may not always have a gentle boss. I've told you all this story before. We're just going to repeat it for those who never heard it before. There was a place where an old gentleman was for years the foreman of this place, and I was well aware of the place because there all the time. This big business place. The foreman was a very kind sort of a gentleman, and he retired, and they got this young fellow on the scene. And this young fellow clowned around. You go do this, you go do that, you do this, you do that, you do this, you do that. And finally, the people really got upset. And I said, what happened to the atmosphere of this place? I asked the young fellow working there. He said, got a new foreman. He said, nobody wants to work. Nobody wants to do anything. I said, well, you fellows was always friendly and everything. Now everybody acts like you're forced to do everything. So they all decided they're going to go in and raise a complaint. So they all went in and raised a complaint. And they complained about this fella. And so they said, well, we'll have to let you go. We'll just have to let you go. That's all there is to it. Now, they never said a word to the next guy coming on the scene. I go back in, and I said, whoa, something happened in this place. Everybody's back to normal. What's going on? Said to the same young man. He said, you know, I think that the man we got now is the kindest man we've ever seen. He said, I want you to watch him in operation. You'll see him in operation around here. Just watch him. And about that time, this fella came out, and he said, George, somebody, I noticed I was up on the third story, and somebody had bumped into a bag of corn or something, and the corn got out on the floor, and we don't want mice in it. Would you mind going up and just cleaning that up? I'd really appreciate it. He said, oh, I'd be glad to. And away he went. And this young fellow said to me, he said, did you see how that guy handled it? The other guy would have said, go up and do it. He said, we want to do what this man says. We want to. It's all in that management business. It's all in that management. It's how you manage your life. You understand that if you're working with other people, you need to have an understanding that that you're working with other people too. And your character matters. And in the workplace where it matters. Now let's look at this financial end of the deal. This is changing subject completely now. But money management. But thou shalt remember the Lord thy God, for he giveth thee power to get wealth, that he may establish his covenant, which is swearing to thy fathers as it is this day. Deuteronomy 8:18. Now, I want to ask you something. If you make money with the secular way of making money, you will not enjoy it. If you recognize that God has given you power to get wealth, and all is centered around him, you'll enjoy it. When God said that I'll give you power to get wealth, it means that you will enjoy it, because that wealth is not your God, it is your tool. When it is your God, he's a rough God. When he's a tool, it's wonderful. The Bible even talks about that you may have things to enjoy, even wealth included. See, if money isn't managed in God's way of doing things, spending, signing notes, contracts, and etc., it means a big difference. When you sign your name, 100% integrity is behind that signature. You have already managed your life to such an extent that you are obligated, responsible, that note will be paid off on May the 10th if that's when it's due. Not May the 11th. Not May the 12th. Not even grace period. You will notice that they'll notice whether you paid it or not. It'll show up on a sign. When you're spending money that is not yours, you're going to have a problem down the road. You'll probably have a lack someday. You'll be short. You dare not spend money that you don't have at the expense of not paying your notes and paying your rent and so forth. You start spending money that is not yours, and all the angels of heaven are going to stop. You're not going to be blessed. You're going to be under curse. Right straight down through it. You need to sign a note or sign rent with one thing in mind. That integrity matters. Money management. When you borrow money, you are already supposed to have managed, can I pay this off? Do I have enough money coming in to pay this off at such a time? It's not just saying, oh, well, we'll get it paid some way. That contract is a contract. And heaven takes note. If you don't believe that God takes note of things, you just say to a woman, I now take you as my wife. That's all there is to it. Pastor just says, now I pronounce you as husband and wife. There's no note signed. There's no contract signed. God doesn't need a contract signed. He says your word is supposed to be good enough that that's all that matters. And we don't have contracts when you get married and say, will you sign your name here that you'll do this? That's the way we used to do things. I remember the day when a handshake would do it good. A billionaire that I heard this billionaire speak before. And he said the most important thing in all of life, number one, is integrity. Number two is giving. If you're not a giver, you won't be a receiver. He said if you can't shake hands with somebody on a deal and say, I shake your hand, That settles the contract. It's no written thing about it. He said, your word ought to be so you'll never forget that. Your word ought to be so good you'll never forget it. People will charge up something, completely forget about it. No, they didn't forget about it. No such thing as forgetting it. Your integrity's off. Integrity requires memory. This man, which I know he's right, said the more money I give, the more I receive. He said, I give more money away than I make for myself. He said, I don't pay any attention to that. My purpose is to make money to give away. He said, my son told me one time, said, Dad, you know how much money you're giving away? He said, doesn't make any difference. He said, I'm alive and happy. You're not starving, are you? He said, I'm in business for one thing, to give. Can you imagine why the man is wealthy? That's all he's thought about. See, this thing of tithing, now they say tithing's not in the New Testament. I'm not arguing the point. The point of it is, I'm going to tithe. If you don't want to, that's not my business maybe. Because I feel like it's the way to get blessed. I'm not going to stand around and argue about the situation. I heard a preacher say one time that tithing passed away with the Old Testament, so did a lot of other things. So I'm not, that's not the point. I'm just saying I'm going to tithe. Gold and silver investment. If you save up silver and gold, then don't sing the song, take my silver and my gold, not one mite would I withhold. Just stop singing that song. You know what? Gold and silver may be an investment, but at the same time it may be a snare to you if you got anytime you got a bank account or something and you're satisfied with that because you feel security in it, our only security is in God, not in your investments. Do you have enough money to go to the old folks' home? Is a question they often ask. If that's your fear, you're ensnared with something. My wife and I soon will live in an old folks' home. And I'm going to be in charge. Because it's my old folks' home when we get old. If we ever get old. Stocks and bonds. You know, stocks and bonds can be a good investment if you do it right, but then at the same time you can lose. I told a fellow one time, I said, you got money, I don't. But I'm going to tell you something, if you invest in that, it's going to cost you. Because I knew by the word of knowledge it's going to kill him. I said, I just want to tell you, it's going to give you problems. Oh, he got money, my goodness, he knows how to make money, you know. You know what? It cost him a lot of money. It cost him thousands of dollars lost. Many, many, many thousands of dollars lost. And he said later on, he said, I wish I'd have known that. He didn't know it. I told him. He didn't believe me. Loaning money to others. This is one of the greatest disappointments I've ever seen in life. It isn't hardly one person in the country you can loan money to, and they say, I'll pay it back on Friday. I'll pay it back on a certain day, or I'll pay it back at certain... I haven't found 1% of the people that's borrowed money off us were awkward. Then they wonder why they're not blessed. They wonder why they got problems. Integrity is important. The Lord said to me one day, if you borrow money from your brother and you tell him you'll pay him on Friday, you better make sure you pay him on Friday, because I am watching you. He that is faithful in that which is least is faithful also in the much. And he that is unjust in the least is unjust also in much. And folks, it's all in management. It's all in absolute management. Finances and integrity. Spending money that's not yours. Most people's problem is not lack. It comes from poor managing practices. That's what it is. It's not the lack. You know what? If I told you who this guy is, you'd know him. A business type of fella. He said, you know, a fella can come up here from Mexico and he can take the same amount of money an American makes, exactly the same amount of money, and that fella is a success in short order and the American is poor. He said, you know what the difference is? Because they were brought up to save and stuff, and they hold on to the thing. American just goes and just spends money and spends money and spends money and spends money and runs here and runs there and runs here and runs there. Poor management. We have to manage that money. It's fun to have money to spend. But I tell you, Esther and I lived on the least amount of money you could just about get. In fact, the finance company was going to write an article about us, and I didn't give him permission to do it, but he said that story needs to be got out. I've watched y'all. We never had a penny borrowed from him. But he'd come to our place. So how much it cost you to live now? We would go out and buy 100 pounds of flour, bag of flour, and buy a few things like that, 100 pounds of sugar, 100 pounds of this, 100 pounds of that, and put them up there. We raised that family. Hardly cost us anything. We had chickens running around on the farm. If we wanted a goose for supper, we got a goose. We had a gander meal, or chickens running around, and we raised a lot of stuff there on the farm, and we just go out and get them. And we lived just about on nothing. And nobody was starving. And we really enjoyed that because we raised a big garden. And we'd be out in that garden. And we'd be in that garden growing stuff. And whether you know it or not, you get that garden produce and pull it off fresh from the stalk. That's enough to make anybody hungry. So what I want to close with on tonight is, every man according as he purposed in his heart, so let him give, not grudgingly or of necessity, for God loveth a cheerful giver. You know what? If you got a cheerful giver, you had a cheerful liver. You will be a cheerful liver. Just cheerful. And I'd like to suggest that you pay Uncle Sam with a smile on your face, because most people don't. And they like to see somebody breaking through. And, it's just best just to go on and live happy. Manage your life to do that. Manage your finances so they don't come back on you, so they don't haunt you in bed.